provided for all the first year student, in which student will have the record access of all the recorded session anytime, anywhere. Then also notes are there with CPMB based question answers and MCQ. Then also MCQs are being provided from beginner level to expert level. And also the student can book the slot for personalized counseling session, in which they will have the direct interaction with the counselor. And also we have some subscription plans starting from basic to premium. So the basic plan is of 3 months, standard plan is of 6 months, and premium plan is of 12 months. So the in premium plan, the main features included like recorded classes, live class, live doubt clarification, one-to-one personalized guidance, quick revision examination module. And also the cost of this premium plan is around 50,000. One for instant 20% discount, you can use my code Aanchal 20. So I would recommend all the students to take the premium plan, which include all the services that is provided by Auricle. Okay, so in internal marathon exam series, we have some features like rapid revision of all the important topics, then volatile facts, quick revision, multiple choice questions are will be covered, and also we assure top-notch grades in the examination. So let's start with the today's topic. So in today's class, we're going to cover all these topics like cardiac cycle, ECG, and abnormality, vasomotor center, pulmonary circulation, properties of cardiac muscle, and refractive period. We're going to cover. Along with these, BP, normal range of BP, normal BP, and BP regulation with hypertension, we're going to cover. So first, we're going to start with the pulmonary circulation. So before starting with pulmonary circulation, all the student should know what is cardiovascular system. So cardiovascular system is basically a closed system through which blood flows throughout the blood supply, throughout the body supply, nutrients, oxygen to tissue, and removing waste, and also carbon dioxide, right? So in CVS, it includes heart and blood vessels, and also heart pump blood into the blood vessels. Blood vessels circulate the blood throughout the body. So let's discuss about the pulmonary circulation. So in pulmonary circulation, we're going to understand the concept of pulmonary circulation as well as systemic, because they both are related, right? So first, we're going to discuss about the systemic circulation. So what is systemic circulation? The systemic circulation is otherwise also known as greater circulation. Okay. So what happens here? The blood pump from the left ventricle, left ventricle and passes through a series of blood vessels. Okay, within the arterial system and reaches the tissue. Okay, so from left ventricle, the blood is going to pump all the organ system. Okay, now the exchange of various substances between blood and the tissues occurs at the capillary, and after exchange of material, blood enter the venous system and return back to the right artery. Okay, now from right atrium, blood enters the right ventricle, and thus through systemic circulation, oxygenated blood is supplied from heart to all the tissue. Right now, what is pulmonary circulation? So, as the name refers, pulmonary. Pulmonary basically refers to the circulation that is occurring within the lungs, right? So, pulmonary circulation is also known as lesser circulation. Okay, so what happened here? Blood is pumped from right ventricle to the lungs. Okay, and here oxygenation will occur. Okay, what will happen here? Here oxygenation will occur. And again, this oxygenated blood returned to left atrium through the pulmonary vein, right? And the left side of the heart contain oxygenated blood. So this side contain oxygenated blood, and right side contain deoxygenated blood. Right? Now we're going to know about some difference between systemic and pulmonary circulation. So first we're going to talk about the another name. So the another name of systemic circulation is greater circulation. This is also known as greater circulation, and this is known as lesser circulation. Then also the systemic circulation, the blood pumped from in systemic circulation from left ventricle and in pulmonary circulation from right ventricle. Also, in systemic circulation, blood flows through systemic arterial system to tissues, right? Whereas in pulmonary circulation, blood flow through pulmonary artery to lungs, right? Now, talking about the return of blood. So, the return of blood in systemic circulation occurs here. Venous blood returns to right atrium through venous system. Okay, and in pulmonary circulation, here oxygenated blood returns to left atrium through pulmonary. Fine. Now, next, again, we're going to have a recap of both systemic and pulmonary circulation. So, if I draw here the structure of heart, okay, so if we consider that these are the four chamber of heart, starting from right atrium, right ventricle, then left atrium and left ventricle. So, what happened from inferior vena cava and superior vena cava? Inferior vena cava and superior vena cava, the blood is going to drain into the right atrium, and from my right atrium to right ventricle, then from right ventricle to the lungs. Okay. Right. So here pulmonary artery will be there. Okay. Now oxygenation will occur. From lungs, again, blood is going to drain into left atrium through pulmonary vein. And atrium to left ventricle. And finally, from left ventricle to aorta. From aorta to arteries. From arteries to arterioles. And finally, to systemic capillaries. And again, this oxygenated blood is going to return back to the heart. Okay. So, from here to body tissues. Finally, from body tissues to veins. And from veins to inferior vena cava and superior vena cava. Okay, so this is how the whole circulation is going to occur within the heart, right? Now, next we have the properties of cardiac muscle. So, in properties, majorly we're going to discuss about the main properties that are excitability, rhythmicity, conductivity, and contractility. Okay, so first, what is excitability? So, this is defined as the ability of a living tissue to give response to a stimulus. Okay. So this is defined as the ability of living tissue to respond to a stimulus. Right? So what happened in all the tissues, initial response to a stimulus is a electrical activity, right? In the form of a action potential, and also it is followed by mechanical activity in the form of various contraction in the form of secretion. Okay. So here also we're going to learn about the electrical potential in cardiac muscle. So first we're going to learn what is resting membrane potential. So what is resting membrane potential? This occurs in cardiac muscles and in SA node Purkinje fibers. Okay. So when we talk about the resting membrane potential, so in cardiac muscles, we have around minus 85 milli. Okay. Now also, what is action potential? Basically, action potential in cardiac muscle is different from that of other tissue, right? It is different from skeletal muscle and smooth muscles. Now, here the duration of action potential in cardiac muscle is around 250 to 350 millisecond. Okay, that is 0.25 to 0.35 millisecond. Now, I'm going to draw a curve that will be showing the different phases of action potential. Okay, so as we have discussed, the resting membrane potential starts from minus 85. Okay, so we're going to draw starting from this, and we'll be having this. Okay, so here we have first phase. First phase is showing initial depolarization. Okay, then next phase we have initial repolarization. Then here we have third phase, that is plateau or final depolarization. And the last we have final repolarization. Okay, so this is showing the action potential, different phases of action potential, right? So I'm going to write it. Initial depolarization, then initial repolarization, then plateau, and final depolarization. And finally, we have final repolarization. Okay. So this curve is showing the different phases of action potential in cardiac muscle, right? Now, next we have another property, that is rhythmicity. Okay. Now, what is rhythmicity? Rhythmicity is the ability of a tissue to produce its own impulse regularly. Okay. So this is the ability of a tissue to produce its own impulse regularly. Okay. And it is also known as autorhythmicity or self-excitation. Okay. Now, the property of rhythmicity is present in all the tissues of heart, and also heart has a specialized excitatory structure from which the discharge of impulse is maximum. Okay. And what is that specialized structure is known as? That is known as pacemaker. Okay. And from here, the impulse from pacemaker, the impulse is going to spread to other parts through the specialized conductor system. Okay. So what is pacemaker? Pacemaker is basically the structure of heart from the which impulse of heartbeat are produced, and also it is formed by a specific type of cells, and those specific types of cells are known as P cell or pacemaker cell. Okay. So this is all about the rhythmicity. Now next we have the another property, that is conductivity. Okay. So what is conductivity? The conductivity is the basically human heart has a specialized conductor system through which the electrical impulse from SA node are transmitted to other parts of the heart. Okay. So this is the ability through which the electrical impulse from SA node are transmitted. Okay. Now, also we're going to talk about some components of this system. Okay. So as we know, we have a conductive system in the heart. Okay. And the conductive system of the heart is modified by cardiac muscle fibers. Okay. And these fibers are the specialized cells which conduct impulse rapidly from SA node to the ventricle. Okay. Now, conductive tissue of the heart are also known as junctional tissue. So here we're going to learn about some components of conductive system. Okay, so we have some components of conductive system. So in components, we have AV node, then we have bundle of his, then right and left bundle branches, and last we have Purkinje fibers. Okay, so these are the components of conductive system, right? Now, finally, we have the last property, that is contractility. Okay, now what is contractility? Contractility is basically the ability of the tissue to shorten in length after receiving a stimulus. Okay, so contractility is the ability of tissue to shorten in length after receiving a stimulus. And various factors are there that affect the contractile properties of the cardiac muscle. So in this, most important is the all and none law. Okay. So what is all or none law? Basically, whenever a stimulus is applied, okay. So whatever may be the strength, the whole cardiac muscle will give response, or it does not give response at all. Okay. So that's why this law is named as all. Whether all are going to give the response or none of them is going to give response. Okay. And below the threshold level, if the strength, that is if the strength of stimulus is not adequate. Okay. So the muscle are not going to show any kind of response. Okay. So this is all about the different properties of cardiac muscle, and one more topic is left, that is refractory period, which is a very important topic, and also sometimes the question arise in a short period. Okay. So the question over the refractory period can come in 5 months. So what is refracted period? Basically, this is the period in which the muscle does not show any response to a stimulus. Okay. And also we have two types of period here. First, we have absolute refractory period, and another we have relative refractory period. So what is absolute refractory period. So basically, this absolute refractory period is the period during which muscle does not show any response at all. Whatever may be the strength of the stimulus, it is because of the depolarization during this period. Okay. So because depolarization occur during this period, that's why the muscle does not show any kind of response. Okay. So a second depolarization is not possible, right? Now, next we have relative refractory period. So this is the period in which the muscle show response if the strength of stimulus is increased to maximum. Okay. So whenever the strength of the stimulus will be increased to maximum of its capacity, then the muscle will going to show the response. And in this stage, basically this is the stage at which the muscle is in repolarization state. Okay. So muscle appear in repolarizing state. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the absolute refracted period, refracted period in cardiac muscle. Okay. So refracted cardiac muscle has a long refracted period compared to skeletal muscles. Okay. And absolute refracted period extend throughout the contraction period of cardiac muscle, and its duration is around 0.27 seconds. Right. Now, relative refracted period extends its duration first half of relaxation period, which is around 0.226 second. And so total refracted period in cardiac muscle we have is 0.53 seconds. Okay, so this is all about the refracted period also. Now, next we have the another important topic, that is cardiac cycle. So cardiac cycle is a very important topic, and usually in every alternate year, the question over that cardiac cycle appears in the university exam. Okay. So what is cardiac cycle? Cardiac cycle is defined as the succession, or we can call sequence of coordinated events, right? That take place in the heart during each heartbeat. Okay. So we have some events. So we have arterial events and ventricular events, right? We have arterial events and we have ventricular events. So in arterial events, we have arterial systole and we have arterial diastole. So talking about the duration of arterial systole, so as we can see in the diagram also, the duration of the arterial systole is 0.1 second only, and in the arterial diastole, the total duration is around 0.7 second. Okay. Now talking about the ventricular event, so again we have ventricular systole and ventricular diastole. Okay, so the duration of ventricular systole, as we can see in the diagram also, duration is starting from here to here. Okay, so it is 0.3 second and the ventricular diastole is 0.5 second. And the total duration of cardiac cycle is 0.8 second. Right. Now we're going to discuss about the different events and what is going on in all those events. Okay. So first we have arterial systole. Okay. So as we can see in the diagram also, basically in arterial systole, this arterial systole is also known as last rapid filling phase. Why? Or it is also known as pre-systole. Now, what happened in this phase? It is usually considered as the last phase of ventricular diastole, and as we have discussed, its duration is around 0.1 second. Okay. Now, what happened during this period? Only a small amount of blood, that is 10%. Okay, 10% of blood is forced from arteria to ventricle, and arterial systole is not essential for the maintenance of circulation. Many persons with arterial fibrillation also survive for years without suffering from the circulatory insufficiency. Okay, so in this period, only very small amount of blood is going to come from arterial to ventricle. Okay. Now next we have arterial diastole. Okay. So arterial diastole, what happened in this phase? Basically in arterial, after arterial systole, the arterial diastole starts, and also ventricle systole is also start. As we can see in this picture also, after arterial systole, the arterial diastole is going to start, and simultaneously other processes. Our ventricular diastole is also going to start. Okay. Now what happened? The duration, as we have discussed, the duration of arterial diastole is 0.7 second, and this long arterial diastole is necessary because this is the period during which arterial filling is going to take place. Okay. In this phase, right atrium is going to receive deoxygenated blood from all over the body, right? So in pulmonary circulation, as we have discussed, the right atrium is going to receive blood from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So in this stage, in this phase, this process is going to take place, and also left atrium receive oxygenated blood from lungs through pulmonary. Okay. Now next we have the ventricular events. So we have many ventricular events, and one by one we're going to talk about them. In ventricular event, first we have isometric contraction period. Now, what is this isometric contraction period? Okay, so isometric contraction period in cardiac cycle is the first phase of ventricular systole. Okay, I'm talking about the duration. So its duration around 0.05 second, right? And isometric contraction is a type of muscular contraction which is characterized by increase in tension without any change in the length of muscle fiber. That's why it is named as isometric, because muscle length is not going to change, only the tension is going to change. Okay. Immediately after arterial systole, the arterioventricular walls are going to close, and due to increase in ventricular pressure, the walls are going to close, and also semi-lunar walls are already closed, as we know. Now ventricular contract and close cavity in such a way there is a no change in the volume of ventricular chamber or in the length of muscle fibers, only the tension is going to change. Okay. Now, because of tension is going to increase in the ventricular musculature during isometric contraction, the pressure increases sharply in the ventricle. Okay. And also in this phase, there will be closure of AV wall at the beginning of this phase. And as the AV wall will close, so it will also lead to the production of first heart sound. Okay. Now, next we have the another phase, that is ejection period. So ejection period is basically due to the opening of semilunar wall and isotonic contraction of ventricle, blood is ejected out both the ventricle. Okay, that's why this period is also known as ejection period. Okay, now talking about the duration. So the duration is 0.22 seconds. Okay, another phase we have in ventricular events. We have the third phase, that is known as protodiastole. Okay, now what is protodiastole? This is the first phase of ventricular diastole. Okay, that's why it is named as protodiastole. I'm talking about the duration. So its duration is 0.04 second, and in this phase, due to the ejection of blood, the pressure in aorta and also in coronary artery is going to increase, and the pressure inside the ventricle will drop. Okay. Now, when the intraventricular pressure become less than the pressure in the aorta and the coronary artery, the semilunar valve will close and arterioventricular wall, AV wall will already closed. Okay. So now, as we can see, there will be no change in the heart during this period. So protodiastole indicate only in the end of systole and beginning of diastole. Okay. And also, as we have read that there is a closure of semilunar wall during this phase. So the closure of semilunar wall will use the second heart of sound. Okay, that is done. Another phase we have, that is isometric relaxation phase. So again, isometric is there. So means in this phase also the tension is going to increase without any change in the muscle fiber. Okay. So isometric relaxation basically is a type of muscular relaxation that is also characterized by decrease in tension without any change in the length of muscle fiber. Okay. So isometric relaxation is also known as isovolumetric relaxation. Okay. So during this phase, once again, all the walls of the heart will get closed and both the ventricle relax as closed cavity without any change in volume or length of the muscle fiber. The intraventricular pressure will decrease during this phase. And talking about the duration, so the duration is 0.08 seconds. Finally, we have the last event of ventricle. So we have the last one is rapid filling. So as the name suggests, rapid filling. Okay. So what happened when AV valves are open and there is a sudden rush of blood, okay, which is accumulated inside the arterium. So what will happen? So sudden rush of blood will occur from artery to ventricle. So this period is called as first rapid filling phase, and ventricle undergo isotonic relaxation. And in this phase, around 70% of filling of blood is going to take place. Okay. And talking about the duration, so the duration is 0.11 seconds. Right. So this is all about the ventricular events of cardiac cycle, and arterial events already we have discussed. So we are done with the cardiac cycle. Now, next we have the another important topic, that is ECG. Okay. Now, as we know, ECG is electrocardiograph. Okay, so this is a technique by which electrical activity of the heart are studied. Okay, now the spread of excitation through myocardium produces local electrical potential, and this low intensity current flow through the body, which act as a volume conductor. Now, what is the significance? What is the use of ECG? So, use of ECG, that ECG is used in determining the heart rate, heart rhythm. Okay, and also the ECG is very useful in the diagnosis of various heart disease, like in case of ischemia, in case of heart attack, in case of heart stroke. So ECG has a has its own significance, right? So now we're going to talk about the different waves that are being shown in this graph. So first we have this P wave. Okay, now P wave is basically a positive wave. Okay, and the first wave that is shown in the ECG, and it is also known as arterial complex. Talking about its production, so this wave is produced due to arterial depolarization. And depolarization spread from SC node to all the part of arterial musculature, and arterial depolarization is not recorded as separate wave in ECG because it merged with QRS complex also. Okay, so next we have QRS complex. So as we can see, this complex, this is known as QRX complex, right? So the QRX complex is also known as initial ventricular complex, and Q is a small negative wave. As we can see, this is a small negative wave, and this continue as till the tall R wave, which is a positive wave, and this R wave is followed by another negative wave, that is S wave. Okay, now this QRS complex occurs due to ventricular depolarization. Okay. Another thing we have this after P wave and Q wave. Next we have this T wave. So this T wave shows ventricular repolarization. And another thing we have this PR interval. So PR interval is occurring because of arterial depolarization and conduction through AV. And also these all question are very, very important for the MCQs also. Okay. So usually in MCQ, the questions are there that what is P wave representing, what is the significance of QRS complex. Okay. So you have to answer. Finally, last we have this QT interval. So QT interval represent ventricular depolarization and ventricular repolarization. One more segment is there, that is ST segment, as we can see, right? So this ST segment is basically the cause of this ST segment is isoelectric. Okay. Okay, so this is all about the waves that are being representing in the ECG. Now we're going to talk about the abnormalities. Okay, so various abnormalities are there that are whenever in ECG any kind of deflection in waves produced means ECG will indicate the different kind of abnormalities. Okay, so few we're going to discuss that if there is any increase in amplitude and pointed P wave. Okay, so it is representing right arterial enlargement. Okay, if the P wave is inverted, so means it is representing arterial paroxysmal tachycardia. Then if QRS complex is prolonged, means it is indicating the condition of hyperkalemia. And this hyperkalemia is also shown by the T wave whenever there is decrease in amplitude or if it is absent. Okay, so that is also indicating the condition of hyperkalemia. Okay, then next we have another whenever whenever there is decrease in amplitude or inverted of T wave. So it representing many conditions. The condition like MI, myocardial infarction, the condition like hyperventilation. Also, anxiety is there. Then pericarditis is there. Okay, so these are some ECG abnormalities that are represented by the different waves. Okay, now next we have the another important topic, that is vasomotor center. So what is vasomotor center? So basically, vasomotor center is a nervous center that regulates heart rate. Okay, and it is the same center in brain in which it regulates the blood pressure, and it is also known as cardiac center. Okay, so vasomotor center is bilateral, situated in reticular formation of medulla oblongata and lower part of pons. Okay. So talking about some areas, so areas of vasomotor center, it has vasoconstrictor area, vasodilator area, and also it has sensory area. Okay, so vasoconstrictor area, basically this is situated in reticular formation of medulla in floor of fourth ventricle, and it is formed the lateral portion of vasomotor center. Okay, and this vasoconstrictor area is also known as cardio accelerator center. or pressure center. Okay. Now, what is the function of this center? This center is basically to increase heart rate by sending accelerator impulse to heart through sympathetic nerve. Okay. And also this center is responsible for the constriction of blood vessel, and also the stimulation of this center in animals increases the heart rate, and its removal or destruction decreases the heart rate. Okay. Now, next we have vasodilator area. So this area is also known as depressor area. Okay. And this area is basically to decrease the heart rate by sending inhibitory impulse through vagus nerve, and it is also responsible for the dilation of blood vessels. Okay. Now, next we have sensory area. So, sensory area is basically present in nucleus of ductus solitarius in medulla, and
Sir, ma'am got disconnected. Okay.
Ma'am connected.
Okay. You can share the screen now, ma'am.
okay, so next we have sensory area. So sensory area is situated in nucleus of ductus solitarius in medulla, and it forms the posterior part of vasomotor. And this receive sensory impulse through glossopharyngeal nerve and vagus nerve from periphery, particularly from the baroreceptors. And this area control vasoconstriction, constriction and vasodilators. Okay. Now next we have BP. So BP means blood pressure. Okay, so what is blood pressure? So blood pressure is defined as the lateral pressure that is exerted by columns of blood on the walls of artery. So whenever we talk about blood pressure, so in blood pressure we have different type, that is systolic blood pressure, then diastolic blood pressure, then pulse pressure is there, and also mean arterial pressure. Okay, so talking about the normal range. So as we know, the normal range of the BP is different. Okay, so talking about the normal range of systolic BP, that is 120 mmHg, and diastolic BP is 80 mmHg. Okay. Now, what is systolic and what is diastolic? Basically, systolic pressure is defined as the maximum pressure that is exerted in the arteries during systole of heart. And diastolic blood pressure is defined as the minimum pressure exerted in the artery during diastole of heart. Okay. And what is pulse pressure? Pulse pressure is basically the difference between diastolic and systolic blood pressure, and mean arterial pressure is basically the average pressure that is existing in the arteries, and basically it is not the algemic mean of systole and diastole. It is the diastole pressure 1/3 of pulse pressure. Okay, so this is all about the different pressure that exists. Now next we have the regulation, BP regulation we're going to talk about. So in BP regulation, we're going to talk about two different mechanisms. First, we're going to talk about the baroreceptor mechanism, and then we will going to talk about the RAS system. Okay, so what is baroreceptor mechanism? So baroreceptors are basically those receptors which give response to change in blood. Okay, so whenever any change in BP means if there will be increase in BP, so this increase in BP is going to stimulate baroreceptors. And this baroreceptors will send signal to nucleus of tractor solitarius through 9th and 10th cranial nerve. Okay, now this nucleus tractor solitarius is going to do two different things. First, it is going to inhibit vasoconstrictor area, which will decrease vasomotor tone, and there will be dilation in blood vessel. Okay. Now, second thing, what it's going to do, that it will also stimulate vasodilator area. And stimulation of vasodilator area will cause increase in vagal tone. And there will be increase in vagal tone. If there will be increase in vagal tone, so it will be responsible for bradycardia and reduction in cardiac output. So both dilation in blood vessels and decreased cardiac output will cause decrease in BP, and there will be normal blood pressure. Okay, so this is the mechanism that is occurred by baroreceptors. Okay, so this is the baroreceptor mechanism. Another mechanism we have the RAS mechanism we're going to talk about. So what happened in RAS mechanism? Whenever there is decrease in blood pressure, so this decrease in blood pressure will cause the stimulation of juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay. Then this stimulation of juxtaglomerular apparatus will cause the release of renin. And this renin will help in the conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. And also this angiotensin 1 is going to convert to angiotensin 2 with the help of ACE. This ACE is angiotensin converting enzyme. Okay. And this angiotensin 2 will going to convert into angiotensin 3. And enzyme is responsible, that is, actually this arrow should be like this. The enzyme is responsible, that is angiotensinase released by liver. Okay. Finally, this will cause the conversion of angiotensin 4. Now, this angiotensin 2 is responsible for two mechanisms. Okay. First, it will cause vasoconstriction. Okay. Second, it will stimulate adrenal cortex. Okay. With angiotensin 2, angiotensin 3 and angiotensin 4 also going to stimulate adrenal cortex to stimulate a hormone that is known as aldosterone. Now, finally, aldosterone will cause reabsorption of water and sodium inside kidney. Okay, so there will be increase in ECF, which will cause increase in blood volume. So this vasoconstriction as well as this increase in blood volume is responsible for normal blood pressure. Okay, so this is the RAS system that we have learned. Okay, now finally we have the another important topic, that is hypertension. Okay, so what is hypertension? Hypertension is defined as the persistent high blood pressure. Okay, so clinically when we talk about, so when the systolic pressure remains elevated above 150 mmHg and diastolic pressure remain elevated above 90 mmHg, so it is considered as hypertension, right? So if there is increase only in systolic pressure, so that time it is known as systolic hypertension. And if there is only increase in diastolic pressure, that is considered as diastolic hypertension. Okay. So in hypertension also we have two types, that is primary hypertension and secondary hypertension. Okay. So what is primary hypertension? Primary hypertension is basically the elevated blood pressure in the absence of any underlying disease. Okay, and also this is also known as essential hypertension. Okay, so arterial BP is increased because of increased peripheral resistance, which occurs due to some unknown cause. The cause is known right now known. And also this primary hypertension has two types. The first is benign hypertension, and second we have malignant hypertension. So what is benign? So in benign hypertension, basically it is the high blood pressure that does not cause any problem. And it is also defined as the essential hypertension that runs a relative long and a symptom-less course. Okay, so in the early stages of this condition, there is a moderate increase in blood pressure with the systolic pressure of about 200 mmHg and the diastolic of about 100 mmHg. Okay, in resting condition and in sleep, the pressure returns to normal level, and also later there is a further increase in blood pressure and it does not come to normal level in resting condition. Okay. Another thing we have is malignant hypertension. So malignant hypertension is a severe form of hypertension with a rapid course leading to progressive cardiac and renal disease, and it is also known as accelerated hypertension. So what happened in this case? In this case, the blood pressure is elevated to great extent and systolic pressure rises to about 250 mmHg and diastolic pressure rises up to 150 mmHg. Okay, and it is always developed due to combined effect of primary and secondary hypertension. Malignant hypertension causes severe damage of tunica intima. Okay, so what is tunica intima? It is a layer of blood vessel. Okay, so of small blood vessel and organs like eye, heart, brain, and kidney. So it is a fatal disease, and since its cause is death within few years. Okay, so this is all about primary hypertension. Another we have secondary hypertension. So secondary hypertension is basically is the high blood pressure due to some disorders. Okay, in some disorders like due to cardiovascular hypertension, endocrine hypertension is there. Okay, in cardiovascular also we have the condition like atherosclerosis. Okay, so what is this condition? This condition is the hardening of walls of the blood vessels due to accumulation of fat. Okay, and basically in this condition there will be hardening of wall of artery. Okay, in also another thing we have the, if this is one, okay. Another thing we have endocrine hypertension. So endocrine hypertension is basically developed because of hyperactivity of some endocrine gland. Okay, maybe due to hypersecretion of aldosterone, due to hypersecretion of catecholamine from adrenal medulla. Okay, and also third one is there, that is renal hypertension. So renal hypertension, because of stenosis of renal arteries or presence of any tumor in JG cells or due to glomerulonephritis. Okay, so these are the condition in which the hypertension can be caused. Okay, so also the question over the hypertension can appear in long as well as in short. So if it will appear in five number question, so you can simply write about the hypertension, you can simply write about the classification, but if it will come in the long question, then you have to write a elaborative answer. Okay, so this is all about today's class. So I guess we have covered all the important topics. So we have covered cardiac cycle, ECG abnormalities. ECG we have covered vasomotor center, pulmonary circulation, systemic circulation, properties of cardiac muscle, refractory period, BP regulation, and hypertension. So this is all about today's important topics. Two more classes are there over CVS. So I hope you find this class more helpful. So thank you for watching my class, and you can also connect with us through several platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram. So thank you so much for watching my class.